Hey everybody, I am Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press, and I am here with you for our weekly Run Wild with Us. Ask Us Anything. Hopefully, you are watching this now on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and you get an opportunity to ask me whatever you want. So, for those of you who may be new to this, Running Wild Press is an independent publisher where we publish stories that don't fit neatly in a box. We also have a brand new branch called RIZE, where we're publishing stories written, genre stories written by people of color. And both are doing incredibly well. We've gotten a lot of great reviews, a lot of great attention. So, you have questions, you are more than welcome to ask. All you have to do is pop your questions in the comments section. And basically, what I do is I will repeat your question, and then what we can do is I'll respond to whatever your question may be. Typically, the questions that we address are around creative writing, publishing, franchising. It could be about how to send your workout, anything like that. So, and I am here from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific time, or 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern time, to answer whatever questions that you have. So, to get us started, I actually first want to congratulate Alicia Delory, because her book, hey, is the first one that we're going to have come out this year, March 16th. And I'm very excited about her memoir. It is actually, it's a memoir that follows her and her husband's life and her family's life, as her and her husband first entered the military, and basically goes through what her experiences are with her husband when he first gets PTSD. So it's actually a really interesting story. It's one that I think both individuals who are either in the military or are have family in the military or friends in the military, it can really teach you a lot and kind of help you prepare both for when you may have that kind of challenge, or if you have somebody else in your family or friendship who may also have that kind of challenge. So that is coming again, March. Very excited. I really think it's something that you should pick up. And it is actually available now. So, all right. So with that, again, I'm Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press. We have been blessed in that we have had a few books named Best of 2019 as well as 2020. We've also had a book that was named Must Read for July of 2020. We have around, I think, 18 books that are coming out this year. And we typically go for stories that are a blend of multiple genres. So, we're really looking for those great stories that, fans read it and go, oh my God, I love this. I have to read it again. And, but they that don't fit neatly in a box. So maybe it's not solidly a mystery, or maybe it's not solidly a horror film. Maybe it's something that it has some literary elements to it. And it's that blending that makes it a little bit different than what you may typically find. And believe it or not, man, there are tons and tons and tons and tons of stories out there today that do basically fit across multiple genres. And boy, does that make it a lot more fun to read. So look for that. If you have never joined us before, typically we just, you ask me whatever you want. go ahead, you pop it in the comments section. I will reply and respond, unless it's something that's not appropriate. Every once in a while, we get something that's a little, what I would say is on the strange side, and we don't cover those topics. But otherwise, we do respond to basically everything that comes through during this live session. If you have never done this before and you would like a greater familiarity, this is actually a very live event. It is on Facebook, it's on Twitter, and it is on YouTube. And what happens is once it's done, it's then posted. The recording is then posted so that you can go back and check it out whenever you want. So just keep that in mind. Okay. I have had some really interesting questions in the last couple weeks around, like, writing and how do you break into writing and all that kind of thing. And I have to admit, I mean, I have a bit of an advantage because my father raised me. I think even before I learned how to write a paragraph, my father started raising me to write Associated Press style. So, for me, it's, out of my pocket. I just sit down and I start writing it. Um, what is more challenging is the more complex, the longer the piece, and ensuring that it's well interwoven and that all of the narratives and the storytelling is in sync and consistent. And then, you as a reader read it and say, wow, I've got to keep reading. This is fabulous. So that's a little bit harder. That takes a bit more work. Now, oftentimes I'll get questions like, does this mean that I have to get my MFA, or does this mean I need a PhD? And the real answer is no. Um, Although I know Alicia and I went to the same MFA program. Um, the reality is that you can self-teach. So you can teach yourself creative writing. And my personal guidance is that you pick your favorite books, and then I know there's like a whole subset of our population that have a fit if someone, writes on a pen, writes within a notebook, or writes on the margins or whatever. So maybe get a book, like a paperback, that you treat that as like, this is your study piece. And if you do, then that means you allow yourself to write all the notes that you need or all the notes that you want on it. And that can be anything from summarizing the chapters. It can be hitting all the key points, right? The key bullet points, outlining those. It can be really, it's you sitting down and studying the piece so that you understand how the author has accomplished what they're accomplishing within that piece. And why that's important is because if you study it and you learn it, then that means that you then can replicate it. You can use the same techniques and tools in your own work. And that's huge. That is huge. So in reality, you can basically create your own online publication class and training for yourself and replicate that methodology or those tools when you sit down to write a short story or a novel or whatever the case may be, and just take it from there. And I think, at least to initially learn these techniques is tremendous. And really, really, really take advantage of the tools that are available to you or that you can make available to you. I think also one thing that some people don't do, and this is sort of up to you, I personally do this. So I believe in reading across genres and reading across forms because you learn from, you can learn from every form. You can learn from every genre. There's so much to be gained, no matter the genre, no matter the author. You know, if you like, I generally speaking am a big fan of National Book Award winners. So I will actually pick up National Book Award nominees and I will analyze them so that I better understand the tools that they used for when they actually drafted the overarching novel. And that then will enable me to do a more thorough analysis for when I or if I want to use similar tools for my own novels. So I think it's a great way. I know some people are very hesitant. They don't want to write in their books, they don't want to, um, you know, cut turn the pages or anything like that. I'm going to tell you though, if you are an aspiring author or you're an author, man, what better way to really learn about that technique or those techniques than to mark those techniques within the piece and then replicate it in some capacity. So, I don't know, just saying, it's probably a really good idea. You could also go forward and so like let's say if you if you've never written, let's say you want to experiment and you've never written in a multiple point of view perspective. My suggestion is look up your favorite book where the author is writing from multiple points of view. See how they're doing it. And I don't just mean like, is it third person close and, one chapter's one point of view and another chapter's another point of view. See how they're, connecting the chapters themselves, how they're being linked. See how the story itself or stories are being linked, because that can help guide you as well. Typically, what you will find is if it is a multiple point of view characterization or narrative, then oftentimes those narratives themselves typically are actually connected. And so you want to see how someone else has done it and made it so that it's seamless and so that they all work together so that when you go forward to do it, then you have that in your back pocket as well. Cree says, Monsieur. Monsieur, good to see you, Cree. Another thing to think about is that when you are writing, I know a lot of times, like, so when I first started writing, I started off meaning fiction. I always, was that Spanish, Monsieur? No, I believe that's French. So when I was in my uh, much younger years. Actually, the first thing I ever drew was a comic book, believe it or not. And then from there, I wrote my first articles, and then I had those articles published and all that kind of happy stuff. But in terms of actual fiction, my first cuts at fiction, I was determined that I would do it freeform. And I don't know why. But I had it in my head that I was going to write my short stories completely freeform, and then I would somehow have them miraculously published and adored and all that kind of stuff. Now I did get them published. I did get a few published. Don't get me wrong. But one thing that at least I have found is that the more complex the story, the more likely you will want to outline that story. And the reason I say that is if you go through and you think through all of the key elements to that narrative up front and you outline that within the actual narrative itself, then most likely you're going to have a much easier time when you're actually writing it. And you can actually make it even more complex than if you did it more freeform because you're more aware of all the different elements and how they're interplaying and how they are working together. And so you really want to, it's a benefit to you, put it that way, to use that type of methodology. So cool. Okay, so it is 2:15 Pacific time and 5:15 Eastern time. For those of you who possibly you've never dialed in with us before, it's okay. You are more than welcome to go ahead, pop a question in the comments section. I'm happy to answer just about anything around writing, publishing, creative writing, even public speaking, teaching, meaning teaching creative writing, speaking at events, all of that kind of thing. I'm happy to do that. So let's see. So, and here we are. It is 2021. So we have begun a new year. Thank goodness. I'm really, really looking forward to all that we're going to be able to do together because we're going to be able to do a lot together, which is great. We already have a Running Wild Press. If you missed it, it's not a big deal. All you have to do is go back, look on our main page. You'll see a link to our catalog for 2021. Now, it's not our full catalog. It's basically everything that we're planning on publishing between now and July. But we do have a lot more books on our slate to publish in 2021. And they're really, really great stories. I cannot, we've been around for 5 years, for those of you who may not be familiar. And we have been privileged to publish some really amazing stories. Ones that, you know, we truly are blessed to get these into readers' hands. So I hope if you haven't read some of our work that you go pick up one of our ebooks. Some of them are on sale for like 99 cents or $1.99. If not, maybe you pick up a paperback. That would be great too. And you can get a feel for what exactly we offer. And it's a wide variety of stories. We've had a couple of books that were named Best of 2019, Ruben Tihee Hazlitt's Dark Corners, and Suzanne Sample's Frontal Matter Glue Gone Wild were both named among the best of 2019 by Kirkus. And then for 2020, Terrence Hawkins, his short story collection named Turing's Graveyard, which was also phenomenal. So definitely check that out if you have a chance. Daniel House says, what thoughts do you have regarding self-publishing via Amazon or another similar platform versus actively shopping your manuscript to independent publishers? Pros, cons of each. I think it depends on what your goals are. I know plenty of people who have self-published or published on Amazon or have used other venues to self-publish, and were very happy. They were publishing typically a piece that was very much a niche piece. So when they tried to sell it to a larger house, it was unsuccessful because the houses just didn't see the value in publishing the work. And so, you know, they then said, fine, I'll take care of it myself. Did so, and, had no problem. Um, for when you self-publish, it's a lot of work. Not that it's not a lot of work to publish with um, a press. It's more so that you need to be aware of all of the work that goes into it. If you self-publish, you know, it typically means you may not, let me put it that way, you may not be able to actually have it represented in bookstores. You may not be able to have it represented at different conferences because it is considered self-published. Again, though, a lot of it does depend on how you self-publish it. Are you using a party that it's like a shared function, right? Where you are actually publishing it along with another party. That's a kind of it can be a different story. It depends. Um, if you personally have goals where you want it to, be in a Barnes and Noble or at a Costco or at a Target, then most likely you're not going to be able to do that if you self-publish. Again, because it's specific distributors who are providing those books, or providing the books, period, that are present for sale within those organizations. Right now, I know a lot of people um, you know, for self-publishing, I know a lot of people will go ahead and they'll try it, right? So they'll print something that is technically considered a self-published piece, and they go out and they speak a lot, right? They're at a lot of events, and because of that, it means that more people actually get to see their work and have an opportunity to purchase it. So, that's something to be aware of, that, if you are someone who does go out and speak a lot, and you are, in the public eye, then um, self-publishing may actually be beneficial for you. Again, though, you want to keep in mind things like, do you want your book to sell at Costco? Do you want your book to sell at, wherever? And even in that case, what you absolutely want to do is you want to then, whoever the publisher is that you are going to partner with, or that you are going to have acquire your book, you want to make sure that that publisher actually does distribute to the locations that you are interested in having represent your work. So it's a lot to keep in mind. It's a lot to think about. Um, we've had books that whole classes have used as a part of their own learning curriculum. And, it was finagled, right? Like, it wasn't necessarily something that would have normally been selected. But because of the book and because of how the topic and so on, the school elected to pick it up. So, um, it. I know it sounds like a cop out when I say it depends, and I'm sorry about that, but it's true. It really just depends on what your own personal goals are, and how you want to achieve them. I mean, there are plenty of authors who have either self-published or like partnership published. So in other words, they paid for part of um, the book being published, and the printer or the publisher co-paid for the various fees. And there are plenty of authors as well that they go a classic route. And what they do though is they hire a publicist to help them sell their work. So just, you know, it all at the end of the day will comes down to what are you writing, um, who do you believe should be reading it, and how do you want to publicize it, and then that will kind of help guide you and steer you in terms of an approach. So yeah, hope that helps. Let me think. Okay. So I hope everybody is actually enjoying themselves in this brand new 2021. I think this is the first or second one that we've had this year. Daniel says, doesn't sound like a cop-out. This information makes sense. The thought of a publicist makes particular sense for the book I've been working on. Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind too, really do your homework on publicists. And the reason I say that, it's always going to come down to what are your goals, right? So some publicists are amazing at positioning a book and getting it reviewed with bloggers and TV shows and, you know, you name it. And others are better at getting you like on radio programs and that kind of thing. But just because you're on a radio program, that does not necessarily mean that you're the book's gonna sell. Those are not related. Typically, you know, it's best when you sit down with a publicist, talk through what their vision or what their initial thoughts are to publicize the work. And then when you talk to them, also take it deeper, right? You want to be able to sit down and say, okay, you know, I want to be able to be on X number of blogs so that I can do X, Y, and Z. But you really want to be sure that you clearly articulate what your goals are as a part of that publicity campaign. Otherwise, you may be sorely disappointed. And I'm honestly, I am speaking from experience. I had hired a publicist early on that I got on a lot of radio programs, which was, you know, great, but it did not sell books. It did, you know, it got a bunch of people aware of us and our press and our stories, but it did not sell books. So you really want to be very clear in terms of what your goals are. Also, if you have friends who are who've been published already and they've used publicists, then I suggest going to them and asking them for advice on what to look for and who to talk to. Because I think, you know, they would be able to give you some amazing guidance. So, cool. This is my other cat. So my cats are the Master and Margarita. This here is Margarita, who's about to run away. And her brother Master is sitting right next to me. They are really funny and very, I guess you could say, joyful. So, cool. Okay. Now, for those of you who are joining, and let's say you write short stories or you write novellas, right now we have several things open. For submission. One is for nonfiction. One is for fiction. One is for RIZE. So anything to RIZE. So genre stories written by people of color or by groups that should be included. And from a an anthology perspective, we currently have our doors open for the Red Flag anthology. Now, that's intended to be, it can be fiction, it can be nonfiction, and it can be any kind of red flag, right? It could be relationship red flag. It could be, you go somewhere and you realize something's not quite gelling correctly, or whatever the case may be, right? So you just want to make sure that it's just something where you or the character said, this is not right. Let me figure out another way, and then, or whatever the case may be. So that is actually going to be open for a little while. I talked to Lisa Montaigne, so she is the editor of this anthology, and she had mentioned to me that she thinks she's going to extend it for a bit. So you guys have some time. My guess, I mean, I would only assume it's going to be open through maybe the end of February. But hey, it's still open to the end of February. So you can go ahead, submit your stuff. It'd be great. So we look forward to hearing and seeing your red flag stories. Awesome. Okay, for those of you who may be completely new, I am Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of RIZE Press, and this is another Ask Us Anything. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's me and maybe one of our authors or one of our editors, and this is your chance to ask whatever you want around writing, around publishing, around storytelling, and I am more than happy to talk about it. Another actually really good topic is when you're doing a submission. Now, I know for a lot of people, it's like, oh, come on, there are all these rules when I'm submitting a piece to a publication, and everybody's got their own rules. Like, what's up with that? And I totally understand that, right? I've been around for a while, a very long time. And I have experienced that as well. But know that a lot of publications, like, you really want to thoroughly read their guidelines. And you want to take the time to sit down and read some of the works that they've already published. And the reason I say that is because you don't want to be disappointed. You want to make sure that what you're sending in is aligned to whatever it is that they are actually already publishing. So think about that, right? And then let that guide you. I actually have an amazing mentee right now. He is a short story writer through the Horror Writers Association, and he writes beautiful work. And one of the things that we have sat down and done, which I highly recommend you to do as well, is sit down and go through like all the online and in print publications that you frequent, that you're like, I love this, this is great, I love these stories, whatever the case may be. And then from there, you can make a list of all your favorite publications, the ones that you want to submit to. And then from that point, you can sit down and say, okay, I'm making this up, obviously, but, like Jane's publication, they start taking submissions in June, and it's all short stories under 10,000 words or 15,000 words, and they are looking for this kind of theme. And then you write to that. So you then either go back and look at your list of the short stories that you've already written, and if you can either tweak them or if you can change them so that they fit the mold of what that publication's looking for, or you go out of your way and say, okay, look, I'm going to write a story that fits this mold, and then submit it. when the submission period is open. Now, the benefits of this is A, you're going to write a lot of news stories, which is great. And then B, you're going to have a lot of news stories to send out. Now, that means that your body of work is going to grow exponentially. And that's just awesome. Like, who doesn't want to have a large body of work? So now the thing with this, as with any other submission, there's no guarantee they're going to take it, right? But that's great, because what that means is you will now have this great, robust list of brand new stories that you have written for these publications. And if they don't take it, so what? You then take that, you put it on the side, and then you go back and you refocus on another piece, right? And then, you wait a couple months, go back, look at the piece that had been declined, and figure out, do you want to adjust it? Is there something about it that you feel could be improved upon, right? Or was it just simply a case of they just didn't feel like it fit what they were looking for? And that's great too. That means you can send it elsewhere. So it's a really nice way for you to build a list, a target list of where you want to send your work, and then write to that list. So I really, especially if you're newer and you want to learn how to write, and you really want to get your work published, I think this is a great technique. Also, think about when you are looking up these publications, right? And again, they can be in print, they can be in online, and you want to study some of the stuff that they've already published so that you get a feel for what they're actually looking for. But you can study it as well for technique. So if let's say you've only been writing for under 5 years, and so you really feel like you're still learning craft every day. I mean, we all are. Then what you could do is, if there is a short story or there is a story that you really admire, you can deconstruct it and then you can recreate it using a different story or a different theme. And then that way, that can take you to a whole nother level. I know a lot of authors who have done that. It's a great way for you to learn craft, and it's a great way for you to learn how. Sorry, my cats are like, hey, I really want your water. So it's a great way for you to learn craft. It's a great way for you to learn story, right? And so I really suggest doing this. I actually do it pretty regularly. I think after a while you start to realize that you're doing it subconsciously. So you'll pick up something and to read, and then all of a sudden you'll start to realize that you're really kind of mentally deconstructing how they set up the story, and who the key characters are and how they're progressing it. And that's great, right? That's how you learn. Okay. Awesome. So, okay. So if anyone has any questions, just go ahead and ask. And I'm trying to think, we actually, Running Wild right now and RIZE are both open for submissions. So what that means is, you are more than welcome to go on I think it's runningwildpress.submittable.com, and look for all the different submission forms that are currently available. And I would say go on and just send us your stuff. We do publish collections by an individual author. I typically lean towards ones that it's linked in some way. So linked short stories, meaning, versus ones that have absolutely no connection whatsoever. But that doesn't mean you have to do it. So actually, Ruben's, or rather Teehee's, short story collection, Dark Corners, they weren't linked. Excuse me. They were actually each unique stories. They were fabulous. So just keep that in mind, I guess. So cool. Okay, so with that, it is 2:40-ish p.m. or 5:40-ish p.m. Eastern time, and we do this once a week. We sit down. I make myself available for any kind of questions that you guys may have. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. I mean, that's why we're all here, right? I mean, we're here to help each other. We're here to be a community, and what better way to do it than to have a live streaming event across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, you know? So this way you can ask whatever you want, as fast as you want, or as slow as you want, or whatever you want. So, let's see. So I know that there are some people who self-publish. I'm going back to Daniel's question before. And they self-published because they had tried to get published with other publishers, and for whatever reason, it did not work out. And that's okay. And you can do that, right? Again, though, you just have to really be aware of the amount of work that goes into it, because it is truly a lot of work. I mean, honestly, I still remember there was a woman, I think it was a woman, who had called around. So she self-published, called around because she wanted to hit the New York Times bestseller list. So she called all the different retail companies and bookstores to find out if they participated, because there's only a subset of all retailers actually participate in the New York Times bestseller list. And for those who said yes, she then ordered some crazy number of books from each one, like 100 books or something, and actually made it on the bestseller list. But what also happened was she then immediately turned around and returned returned all the books. So, it didn't quite, from what I understand, she actually got in trouble. I think it was fraud, but so you don't want to do that. I think instead you probably want to have a good time, find a press that really gets what you're doing, and you have a good argument for selling it. Because remember that too. I mean, a lot of small presses, they have, I mean, obviously they want to sell books, but they oftentimes have a certain remit, right? Like there's a certain type of story, or there's a certain type of book that they're looking to sell. And so, meanwhile, the larger publishers, they are looking to sell a certain number, right? So you want to keep that in mind when you are out and you're trying to find a publisher. And same with an agent, right? If you want to try and find a publisher or an agent, just be sure that you are aware of what their goals are and they align to, so that the narrative that you tell them about your story, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute, aligns to their goals. So what I mean by that is, there's always some subset, there's some target, right? There's some group that you are targeting in order to purchase these books. And that's great. So, but keep in mind that these publishers, when they're doing it, they absolutely 100% are targeting someone to purchase these books. And the more clearly you can articulate what that is, the more successful you will be. So a lot of what you're doing initially when you're trying to find a publisher and an agent is you are trying to prove to them that your book has an audience and that audience is hungry for this story. So in your cover letter, you just want to make sure that you are articulating that in some capacity so that they can then say, oh, you know what, Daniel wrote this book on, um, whitewater rafting, and man, there's a big market for that right now. I mean, we're talking in the, hundreds of thousands or millions. So you want to be able to articulate that to them so that when they come back to you and say, whoa, you wrote a book about this? That's awesome. So just keep that in mind. Cool? Cool. All right. So if you've just joined us, I am Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press and our subsidiary RIZE Press. And Running Wild publishes stories that don't fit neatly in a box. RIZE publishes genre stories written by people of color and other lesser represented groups. And we have been blessed in having multiple starred reviews, having several books named Best of 2019, one named Best of 2020. And this year, fingers crossed, we keep going in that same capacity. So, yeah. And now we've only got like 14 minutes left. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead, put it in the comments section. I admit, CM8988, I don't know what stories about what means. So, or what's the scope about. So I'm guessing that you're asking me, what is this live broadcast about? And this live broadcast is all about us providing guidance on, it can be creative writing, it can be publishing, it can be storytelling, because I'm the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press. We've had some acclaim, and so this is your opportunity to ask me whatever you want around those areas, and I am more than happy to chat about it. We also currently are open for submissions for nonfiction, for fiction, we have an anthology coming out, a Red Flag anthology. So it's all about, mostly I'd say fiction stories about people who've had red flags or had red flag situations, which is super fun. You should definitely check it out. And I think that's probably going to be open through the end of February, meaning the submission period will be open through the end of February. More so because we haven't gotten a lot of submissions to date. So bring it on, man. We would love to read your red flag story. I know it'll be fabulous. So I hope CM8988, I hope that answers your question. I think I answered your question. If not, please do me a favor and rephrase your question, and I'm more than happy to take another stab at it. So, okay, so today is Saturday, January 23rd, 2021. I am Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor for Running Wild Press. This is another Ask Me Anything, and I will do my best to answer it, as long as it's around the topics of like creative writing and story, and I mean, even conferences. If you want to talk about writers' conferences, what ones do you feel would be most beneficial for you? In order for me to give a smart answer to that, I would need to know what kind of writing you lean toward. So if you're more of if you're more of a mystery writer, or you're more of a literary writer, or you're more of like a YA writer, whatever the case may be, or if you're a blend, that's great too. John Hardick asks, would you consider a red flag story already published? As long as you have the rights to republish it, sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's not a problem. Just make sure that you note on it that it's already been published. Yeah, no big deal. Cool. Yeah, we're not snobs where it's like, well, you've already told this story elsewhere, so forget it. No, we don't do that. That's kind of silly. Um, so cool. Okay. So it is 2:50. Let me think. What else can I tell you guys about? I think, honestly, it was funny when we all got, in lockdown for the pandemic. And I think a lot of people were like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't know about you. I have been swamped. I've got so much stuff going on. It's kind of crazy, actually. Um, I really view this as like a great opportunity to like all that stuff that you wanted to do for ages and you just haven't had the time. Man, got the time now. No more going out and partying for you or me, whatever. So, but I would say, sit down and figure out what are the goals that you have that you've always wanted to achieve, and then like itemize it out, right? Just sit down and write out like what are all the key milestones that you would need to accomplish in order to fulfill whatever that goal is. And then figure out how you can get to each one of those milestones. How can you achieve that? Because if you're going to do it, man, just do it. Why not? I mean, now is as good as if not better time than any. And I know I want to see you successful, so I'm sure you would love to see yourself complete your work successfully. I'm sure you've got a whole cheering section with you. Um, so do it. Make it happen. It's more fun that way. So, and don't wait for someone like me or someone else in charge of a publication to give you that little nudge to do it. You can just do it. Just sit down and say, okay, I am gonna write this or I am going to do that. Um, the more stuff that you can accomplish during this lockdown period, wow, just think about it. I mean, you could really rock the house out, which is a very 80s term. So now you have a better idea of how old I am. But yeah, I mean, you could really have a great time while you're at home and watching Netflix or Hulu or whatever the case may be, you know? So what? Do those things that you'd always promised yourself you were going to do. Just get it done. You may be surprised at how much stuff you can accomplish in the next. I'm going to bet we're going to be in lockdown through 2021. Just saying, at least in some capacity. I don't think that we're going to have all of the, unless there's some miracles, I don't think that our presidents or our governments are going to have the vaccines out quite as quickly as we would hope, which is fine. So take advantage of this time and just knock out that stuff that you've always dreamed of. Cool. Okay, so we've got 6 minutes left. I am Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press. This is another Ask Us Anything. And as long as it's around like creative writing and publishing and conferences and storytelling and content creation, then I am here for you. Ask me about anything else and it'd just be boring, you know. So, cool. And I'm also here with my two cats, Master and Margarita. One of them's out. He's just like sitting here staring at me. Out cold, and the other one I think is abandoned. Like she's like, I'm out. He's so boring, which is totally fine. So, okay. Let's see. What else can we talk about? Another really cool idea, and this is just depends on if this is something you're into. You can also study that same technique that I just described for how to study technique for a short story or for a novel. You can use the exact same technique for a comic book, graphic novel, even for a TV show. So I've had friends who transcribed the dialogue for a TV show before to kind of get a better feel for how that's done. Now, I say that I am going to have a caveat. Television dialogue and film dialogue are not the same as dialogue that's in print. It is noticeably different. The approach for it, the intent of it is very different. And you tell a lot more in dialogue when it is a TV show than you would in a book or in a short story. So don't mix the mediums. You'll find that it's not effective. Instead, study it for if you want to work within that space. So cool. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, like I said, you've got all of 4 minutes. Go ahead, pop it in the comments section. I will be more than happy to answer whatever questions you may have. Oh, next week we will not be here, by the way. Next week I will actually be in a class for myself. And so we will miss each other. But I will be back. I think I'll be back. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I'll be back the subsequent week. Let's see. So I won't be here next week. But I will be here on the 6th of February. So look for me February 6th, not next week. Don't look for me on the 30th, but look for me on the 6th. And come geared up with your questions. Like I said, I'm more than happy to talk about whatever you want around creative writing, storytelling, conferences, approaches for improving your writing or learning. I'm all over it. So, and we will have a really, really good time. John asks, I missed the first part of your lecture. Are you still open to novels or novellas? We are currently open for novels. We publish a novella anthology once a year, and that is closed now. But novels, unless of course you have a collection, a standalone collection of your own novellas, but otherwise we are closed for it for now. I believe we reopen in I want to say July for next year. So you're more than welcome to submit a novella then. But yes, we are open right now. Just go to runningwildpress.submittable.com and you'll see all of the submission forms that are open for you to send us your work. So awesome. All right. And with that, I am actually going to sign off. I want to thank everybody for joining me. As always, it is truly a pleasure. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day and weekend, and I will see you soon.